Hello, welcome to this beaded earrings tutorial brought to you by Ahumi Beads. My name's Trine and I just wanted to quickly introduce myself before we get started. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out to me via Instagram, and if you happen to like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel as there will be more. Hello and welcome to this tutorial. It's a demonstration of hand-woven teardrop earrings. We are using the Miyuki Delica beads. We have 3 rows in total, and I'll go through step by step on how you can make these earrings. They're called the Jelly Jam Tears, and there's 3 colors: flamingo, black, purple, and a few little intricacies where you add additional beads to prevent any gaps appearing in the rows. All right, so let's get started. So this is the thread that we'll be using. It's a very fine fire line. It's very forgiving during the weaving process, and you cannot see it against the frame. This thread comes with the kit that also includes the teardrop frames, the needles, the hooks, the beads, and also a pattern. Okay, so first we are going to grab the thread and our needle and thread the needle. This is the first step that I like to do. And then once I've done that, I'll grab the frame and we will tie a double knot. So take your thread, balance the frame there, and just tie 1 knot, just a standard knot, and leave a bit of tail. We will blend that into the weave right at the end, and just tie a second knot there so you've got your double knot and that thread is secure to the frame. So once we've got ourselves sorted, we will have a look at the pattern, and we want to start with the flamingo color and the black. So these are the first 2 beads that we will be putting on our thread, ready to weave onto the frame. Okay, so picking up our flamingo colored bead along with our black. We have that on our needle. And we are just going to thread it through, and what we want to do is we want to pick up the tail as well. So we want to just pop those beads onto the tail and the main piece of thread, and then we are just going to essentially attach that black bead to the frame, and we already have the flamingo colored bead against the frame. So this is starting off our first row. So we go under the frame and then around and then back through that black bead from the back of the frame. We'll do that again with the next bead. And now our tail is pointing down out of the road for our next step, which is doing the same thing again with the purple bead. See how the needle goes through the front and then out the other side of the frame. And then with the needle we come through the back and up through that bead, and that essentially will attach the bead to the frame, and give us the next position to start again with the next bead. Okay, so with the starting row, we have 3 purple beads consecutively. So we'll go with the second purple bead, and same thing again, we're wrapping it around that frame. So we're wrapping the thread around the frame, we're coming back through that purple bead around the back of the frame, and then that's attaching that thread and bead to that frame. And we'll do that again, pick up our next purple bead. We have it on the needle's going in front of that frame. Our thumb and index finger are holding that bead and thread in place, and then we come back through with the needle behind that frame, attaching the purple bead like so. Okay, so let's start with our black bead. Pick that up on our needle. Put the needle through the front of the frame. If that bead position and the thread slip through your thumb and index finger, just pick that up, and then coming through the behind the frame again, back up through that bead. Pull it taut. Now picking up our flamingo bead, same thing, and coming back through behind the frame. Okay, so if we refer back to our pattern, we can see that we've woven the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beads. So we're up to another black bead. Now I'm going to show you this from another perspective and using black thread so you can clearly see how we are doing this. So the needle's passing through the front of the frame, and you're pulling it from the middle of that frame towards the back, and then we're coming back through that black bead. So now that we've played through this process a few times, we're just going to speed through the rest and get that first row done all the way around that frame. Alrighty, so we've finished that first row. We have our flamingo, black and purple beads going all the way around in a pattern. And now that we've done that first row, we move back in the opposite direction to complete that second row. And as we pointed out before, there's a few intricacies where we will add new beads. Okay, so if we get our thread and needle ready, we will start with the first 2 beads, which is flamingo and black. Now, before we start with those beads, in the first bridge, we are going to tie a knot. So we just go under that bridge, pull it back through, and then go back through that loop to get a knot in that position, and it just helps secure that thread. And then our bead should sit more in that position where we've just knotted that thread. Now, grabbing our beads, we start in the second bridge. Pull it through. Now, this time we're coming from the back and we're going towards the front. And then from that front position, we're going to go through that black bead, and that will secure the black bead to the bridge. You'll notice the flamingo bead is on a slight slant, so we'll go back through that bead and through the bottom bead, and then come back up, back through the bottom bead and the black bead, just so that flamingo bead sits in that upright position. Now we'll start with our next bead, which is a purple bead. Bring it through from the back in the third bridge, and then back up that bead through the front. Grab another purple bead and through the back of that bridge, through to the front, and then back up through that purple bead. So once again, I'm going to show you this in a different perspective with the black thread, so you can see clearly what I'm doing. So I have my thread, I'm going from the back under that bridge through to the front. And I've got my black bead there, and then from the front, I'm going to go back through that black bead, and that will attach it to that bridge. We'll do that again with a flamingo colored bead. So from the back, we're going under that bridge to the front. And then now that we're at the front, we are going back through that flamingo bead, like so. Okay, so we'll keep on moving along, going under the bridge, back up through the bead from the front, pick up our next bead, go under the bridge from the back, and then back through that black bead. We'll keep going with that until we reach the next row of flamingo colored beads where we add a new bead. So you can see here where that line is on the pattern that we have two beads that are on top. Well, the second row is directly on top of that first row bead in that flamingo color. Okay, so the first flamingo colored bead is going to go under the bridge like previous ones. I'll just thread that back through. That's attached. And now we're going to go through that bottom bead, just like we are shown in the pattern. Okay, we'll grab our bead and then we'll go directly down through that bottom bead. Now we're going to go back up through the black bead to the left, and then we're going to go back through our bead that we've just put on, and that will set us up for the next one, which we'll do the same as before, put it under the bridge and back through. So now we have our 3 flamingo colored beads, and that should prevent any gaps that tend to happen as you build each of the rows out around frames. So we'll go with our black bead, and we'll keep on going to the next lot of flamingo beads. And do the same thing again as before to get 3 flamingo beads together in the second row. First, pass the first one through under the bridge and back through. So attach that to the bridge, and then that middle one will attach directly on top of that bottom flamingo bead. And then we'll go back up through the black bead and then through that flamingo bead that we've just popped on there. Okay, so we'll put the next flamingo bead on there. And we'll keep on making our way through as before till we get to the next set of 3 flamingo beads. Okay, so we're at the next set of 3 flamingo beads on the second row, and we will do the same thing again. Same drill. So the first flamingo bead is attached to the bridge, and then that second one is the one that will go through the bottom flamingo bead. And then we just come back up through that black bead to its left, and then back through the flamingo bead that we've just placed. Okay, we'll speed along this part until we reach the end, ready for the final 3rd row. All right, so we've finished that whole second row, and now in the opposite direction we're going to start that 3rd and final row. Okay, so there's 2 places where we'll add a new bead. However, that middle spot, this time we won't need a extra bead there. So tying a knot in that first bridge like before, just to secure that thread in the right place that we want it, so that bead will sit there. Then we'll start with our 2 first beads again, which is the flamingo and black, and we'll go all the way around and stop at the first area where we add a new bead. Okay, so this is where we are going to add an extra flamingo bead. So first we start with the first flamingo bead attaching to a bridge, and the second one will do the same. So picking up our next flamingo bead, going through that second bridge to attach that bead to the bridge, and then when it comes to our 3rd flamingo bead, that's when we will go through that bottom flamingo bead, and it will be directly on top of that bottom one. And then we'll go back through the flamingo bead, this time on the right. It can be either left or right, it doesn't really matter, and then come back through that flamingo bead that we had just placed. And then we will start weaving the next bead through under the bridge as previous ones. So we'll just speed through that. And as we get closer to that middle top, just to show you again that we're not adding an extra bead here. So while the previous set of flamingo beads would have had 5 consecutive flamingo beads, this one here will only have 4, and then we'll come to the next slot again, which will add that extra bead, so that will also have 5. So before we get to the last step, I just wanted to speed through this part and then show you with the kit. If you buy the kit, you'll get 3 needles, a medium, short, and a long needle. As you come to the end of the project, the thread might start getting shorter. You can actually use that smaller needle, and that will assist you in just finishing off the project with a little bit of thread. So moving through quickly again, we'll just finish off this row, and once we get to the last part, I'll just show you how to tie it off. Okay, putting on our last bead here. And then we're just going to start weaving that remaining thread through the beads that we've already woven together and through a couple more. And what we will need to do is tie a knot between a bridge. So wherever there's a connecting thread going into the next bead, we just want to go through that. And we're just going to hold that loop so we don't pull it all the way through, and then bring our needle back through, bringing it through that loop and then pulling taut, and then just going through the beads again and bringing the thread back up to the top to finish it off. Okay, so we have a tail at the top there, that bottom tail. We did knot the thread to the frame, but we're just going to also weave that part of the thread through the beads and do the same thing as the other one where we want it to come out the top. So we'll just weave this remaining thread through the beads and then finish it off by bringing it back through the top. Like so. So now we have 2 bits coming from either side. Now the next step is to burn or cut that thread. So I prefer using a lighter because fire line's quite tricky to cut. You can cut through it, but it takes a bit. So I just use the lighter and just first of all I shorten that thread by pulling it taut and just burning through it. And then I'm going to shorten the ends so they're close to the beadwork, and that should just mount close to that work. I'll just do it a bit more. Careful not to burn through the other thread that's holding all the beads together. So the next part is the hook. Now you will need some pliers to open up the hook and close the hook. So first of all, we'll put the hook onto the frame like so, grab our pliers. Now these are very cheap you can go into a cheap store, tool store, a crafting store, and yeah, you should be able to pick some up for under $5. And there we have it. Our pair of earrings are ready to wear.